Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the last episode of 2020 of Brought to the Table. I'm very excited about this one because this is going to be a very special episode. As you folks are probably watching this, maybe on Christmas Day, I just first want to say thank you for, watching this show. It's been a very new and different show that I've been doing, and it's been super fun to cover all these different games, and this isn't going to stop in 2021. I already got some new games I definitely want to cover on this show, some games that I got to experience in 2020, words are hard, that I definitely want to talk about going forward. Lots of games, but today is kind of a more, special episode because it's Christmas. And, the thing is, I know people have games that, they play with their families on Christmas. They have Christmas-themed games, that type of ordeal. But I want to talk about a game that is actually very near and dear to my heart because it's actually really the first board game I ever got for Christmas that was, super special. And that game is Star Wars Epic Duels. So the history with this game with me, so I'll tell the little story. So the first time I played Star Wars Epic Duels was I went over to a friend's house and they told me they had this really awesome Star Wars game. And this is right when I was getting into Star Wars around, 4th, 5th grade, that type of ordeal. So many moons ago for me. And we went over and it was Star Wars All-Stars, where essentially you had different teams of different Star Wars characters and they were battling it out. And I was like, that's so cool. Where can I get this? And then they were like, it's out of print. And I was sad. And that's when I started kind of looking into how eBay was working and kind of this whole back market thing of where I can go get a copy. And I remember my dad actually took me to a bunch of board game stores and half price books places to try to see if we can find a copy of the game. And they were like, nope, it's out of print. And I really wanted to play it because I kept talking about because when I played at my buddy's house, it was really fun. And my dad, shout out to my dad, for Christmas that year, he bought a copy on eBay that was factory sealed for $100 on eBay, 2006. I guarantee you that price for Star Wars Epic Duels factory sealed is gone up since then. But he was like, you know what? I don't care because I know we're going to play this a lot. And sure as hell, for about 2 years straight, when my mom used to tap dance on Thursdays, when it was guys' night, we played Star Wars Epic Duels probably every single Thursday night for a good 1 to 2 years. It was a magical experience. Star Wars Epic Duels 2 is actually a pretty good game. It holds up really well. Having played it recently, it's actually still a decent game. It was actually re-implemented by the Unmatched series, its engine and core stuff. We will talk more about Unmatched on a future episode of Brought to the Table. Today, I want to cover a game that is a forever game, a game that I'm going to keep in my collection forever, Star Wars Epic Duels. Let's go ahead and bring this game onto the table, and let me just show you why this is really special and why people still talk about this game and why essentially it was re-implemented so many years later. So let's go ahead and jump to the table. All right, so here we go. We got Star Wars Epic Duels. So what is this game exactly? It's essentially a duel game where you're going to have some miniatures that you're going to be using that come with the game like so. They're very plastic. This game originally came out in, I believe, 2003. So these are not high quality miniatures by the means, but they are good enough where you can tell what the individual characters are. So this is Luke Skywalker, this is Darth Vader, this is Princess Leia, and you got some Stormtroopers. So all that good stuff. So how does this game work? Essentially, there's actually quite a few different ways you can attempt to play the game, but just kind of the start baseline rules that the game kind of walks you through. Essentially, a player is going to pick a character. It comes with a character stat sheet, their deck of cards, and then their miniatures. So we'll actually set up Luke Skywalker. If you're playing by the traditional rules, the way that Epic Duels does work is that you pick a player is going to pick the light or the dark side to choose their character. So that's why you're going to see Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. So with that, I'm going to put Luke Skywalker right here, and then I need to place my sidekick, which is Princess Leia in this case, adjacent to Luke Skywalker in some shape or form. I will end up doing the same thing for Darth Vader. So Darth Vader is going to be placed here because that's where his place says. And I'm going to place my Stormtroopers adjacent to him as well. Now you'll notice that if you look at the board too, there's actually a lot of different starting points for different characters. So there's one for Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, Yoda, all that stuff. So if you had different characters that you got to play with and you were playing on these different boards and stuff, because these are also double-sided, you would do that as well. But essentially how the game works is that each player is going to basically take their deck, shuffle it up, and draw 4 cards from their deck. So we're just going to pretend that we're playing as Luke Skywalker in this instance, because Luke Skywalker, I'm Luke, you get the idea. So with that, you're going to draw 4 cards. You're going to choose a player to basically go first, essentially. That's how you basically would normally place your miniatures down. We'll get more into that later. And then after that, you are essentially going to go into basically the turns of the game. Essentially how a turn works is that each player is going to roll, or not each player, the current player is going to roll a die. If the die lands on a side that doesn't have an any on it, you move one of your miniatures up to that many spaces. So I'm going to move Luke Skywalker up to 4 spaces. Now it's important to note that when you move, you can't move diagonally, you can only move adjacently. So I can't move here, I can't move there, but I can do stuff like this, etc., etc. Now, after that, so after I roll, I get to take up to essentially 3 actions. I can basically play a card, draw a card, or heal my main character if my sidekick character is defeated. Now, I can do these actions multiple times on my turn, but I only get 2 of them. So, to start off here, what I'm going to do is that, I have this hand right here of cards. You're going to see all sorts of different cards. Now, certain cards are only going to belong to certain characters for you to use them. So, like this card right here only works with Princess Leia. This card right here only works with Luke Skywalker. So, if Princess Leia was defeated, this card essentially becomes fodder to help kind of heal Luke Skywalker, but I also can't play it to, like, attack, defend, stuff like that. So, that's kind of the key thing. So, with that being said, how does basically the core mechanic of attacking work? Well, right here, let's pretend that Darth Vader had already approached me in some shape or form. What I would do as a Luke Skywalker player, I would take a card and place it face down. Now the Darth Vader player is going to possibly attempt to defend my card with one of their cards in their hand. Now it has to be a Darth Vader card, or else it's not going to work. It can't be a Stormtrooper card because I'm particularly attacking Darth Vader. And also Luke Skywalker, I gotta make sure I attack with a Luke Skywalker card. Now they can choose not to defend and not put a card down, but in this case Darth Vader's going to. And then you're going to reveal these cards. So essentially right here, Darth Vader's got a 4, Luke Skywalker's got a 5. So in this case right here, Darth Vader is going to take 1 hit of damage. Now essentially once this little tracker on the board would reach the red circle, that character would be defeated. Now once the main character is defeated, the game is over, regardless if the sidekick characters are still alive. If the sidekick character is defeated, you can still play until the main character is defeated. There you go. So that's kind of the general gist of how the game works. Now, it's not just that cut and dry and simple. There are other things that you can do. Now, the actions that you're doing on your turn are relatively simple. Drawing cards, you're playing cards, or you are going to heal if your sidekick has been defeated. Now, there are other types of cards that you can play on your turn for the play card. So number 1, there are unique attack and defense cards for each of these characters. So they might not necessarily have a defense value, but they'll have an attack value like this. So in this case right here, it'll say, play when Luke is attacking. If Leia has been destroyed, the attack value of this card is 10. So in this case, what I can do is that if I place this down right here and Leia had been defeated, the attack value of this card is now 10 instead of the printed value of 4. But by default, still 4, so it's a pretty strong attack. 4s are pretty strong in this game. Now on top of that too, there's also specials. Specials are essentially cards that, you just play them as like a unique effect. Now sometimes they'll do damage and other times they're going to do, just normal, like maybe maneuvering around, moving your opponents around, maybe doing damage that the opponent can't block in certain circumstances. So right here, Luke Skywalker says, choose an opponent. You and the opponent reveal your hands. Both of you discard cards with an attack value greater than 1. So in that instance, both players reveal hands, and then you get to discard cards that way. There's some other crazy specials, like, here we go. So here we go. Children of the Force. You get to move Luke and Leia up to 6 spaces, and then I get to draw 2 cards, which is pretty good.
This one right here, you play with Leia if she's out. If Leia is adjacent to Luke, Luke recovers 3 damage. If Luke has been destroyed, Leia recovers 3 damage. And you're like, wait a second. How can that work? Well, that is for games where essentially you're doing team-based play, where Leia can still actually exist, because there's ways you could do basically 2v2 team-based, and in those cases, the sidekicks would still be able to exist in those cases. So that's what that side of the effect is for. So there you go. Now, if we look at some Darth Vader, we're going to see some pretty cool stuff right here. This one says, all too easy. If the card is not blocked, the attacked character receives 20 damage instead of 3. It's a little busted. We all love ourselves some Darth Vader. He's also got the chokes, so choose any minor character. That character receives 6 damage. So, actually, I keep calling them sidekicks because I got the unmatched on my brain. These are considered minor characters. So, essentially, that would mean you do that damage to those particular characters. Then this one is choose an opponent. All of that opponent's characters receive 2 damage. Wow, I forgot how busted Darth Vader is. But yeah, there you go. So that's essentially kind of how the game works. The only other little kind of thing to mention with talking about all this is, what is it? There are characters that have guns. So Leia and the Stormtroopers have guns. They can shoot ranged. So when they would attack, they can actually attack from, far away spaces. So for example, if Luke Skywalker was here, and if Leia wanted to make an attack on Darth Vader, as long as I made an attack with a Princess Leia card, I can attack, and then Darth Vader can defend as well. Now, this type of any attack can be done in diagonal directions. So if Leia was actually right here instead, you can attack diagonally right here. You just can't move in that direction in any shape or form. So there you go. Darth Vader could take some damage from that as well. Now these Stormtroopers right here, they're kind of pretty pathetic. They're kind of there just as kind of damage fodder and like blocking in terms of trying to, maybe block out a little bit of movement. That's kind of what these minor characters end up being, especially for the characters that have multiples of these. You can find ways to essentially use them to block out your opponent's ability to kind of maneuver around and make it a little bit more difficult to attack you. And plus, these doodads can still actually attack and try to chip away. So it's pretty cool what you can do. That's essentially the core rules of the game. It's pretty straightforward. It's not super complex. So why don't we kind of go in and get into a little bit more about why, this game is so beloved by so many people. Now, for starters, I think the best way to kind of get into this is essentially talk about the fact that this game came out when Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, came out. So essentially, there was that many movies to reference. And as you can see, these are all the different playable teams that you can actually play with in the game. You got Han and Chewie, you got Yoda, you got Darth Maul, Jango Fett, Emperor, Count Dooku, Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, Boba Fett, and Anakin Skywalker. So it's pretty cool. Now on top of that too, I talked about kind of the all-star nature of this game. So the game by default kind of has this, layout right here, play Luke Skywalker here, Darth Vader here. And by default, they're saying, hey, choose any light side character, any dark side character, and make them duel. Well, guess what? You don't have to do that. If I wanted to, I could do something like Boba Fett and Greedo, and we can have Greedo and Boba Fett go up against Darth Vader and the Stormtroopers. In those instances, you basically would just choose, split the board in half, and then choose one of those spots to start in, and then there you go. You can do it like that as well. First player that would go first gets to pick first, while the second player gets to pick their position, and then that player would then be able to start going and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a very much an all-stars type of game, where you get to pick any of these teams, and you just kind of go at it. This game also can rock basically up to 6 players, which is kind of nuts. Essentially, when you do multiplayer games, you can do, and they listed in the rules as well. The rules booklet is actually not bad for a game written in 2003. There's a few things, but that's besides the point. They have things set up for free-for-alls for 2 to 6 players, also team-based play. They've also got some master play stuff too if you want to play a little bit more advanced. Stuff like when it would say, some cards say pick a card at random from any player, you actually would get to choose instead. And they have some things like that cleaned up. But yeah, this game is essentially just fantastic, just the fact that it's a Star Wars All-Stars. You get to play essentially a team of characters against another team of characters. And the thing too is, and I don't talk about this very often because I'm not a huge fan of custom content for games, but this was the first game I actually did a bunch of custom printouts back when I was a kid. There was a bunch of characters I wanted to use, and actually Epic Duels had a pretty big custom scene where you get to do stuff. So I actually got some lamination paper and found the customs and printed them out. So I had all the different bounty hunters. You know, I had Jabba the Hutt, I had the Ewoks, I had Qui-Gon Jinn, the Admiral Akbar, you know, Lando, R2-D2, and C-3PO, and of course the very first one that I absolutely wanted to have was General Grievous, because I'm a huge General Grievous fan. I love my cyborg boy with all of his lightsabers. He's really cool. I really like him. And then also the cards. I have all the cards in my box over here. But that's why. This game, it's very simple. You can easily just pick up and play it. All the characters are relatively thematic on what they're kind of doing with their stuff. I really like Boba Fett's deck because he has a special that's a flamethrower. And essentially what you can do is if Boba Fett were in this situation right here, you play the special, it's his flamethrower, and he deals like a bunch of damage to everyone around him. It's really cool. I really like it. Boba Fett, everybody. Also, shout out to the fact that even though these miniatures aren't that great, Boba Fett, all these years later, focus camera, come on. Whatever. Boba Fett does not look like trash. He's actually relatively well painted. So yeah, there's some cool stuff, and there's some like cool little combo things that you can do. Certain characters allow you to get different actions off of cards that you play. Darth Maul is a pretty big example of this because he's got a ton of cards that just allow him to chain attacks together. They're not very strong, but you can just burst out a lot of stuff at the same time. Now the game isn't necessarily the most balanced thing in the world, as you can look at Darth Vader. It's pretty... and I know this from lore too. Essentially, this character is the most busted character in the game. It is Darth Vader, but it's still a fun time. You get to basically take some Star Wars characters and just match them up against each other. Before Star Wars Destiny came out, this was the grand, let's have like kind of a Star Wars All-Stars type of game. And this game still holds up very well, very, very well for Star Wars. You know, still moving stuff around and all that stuff. It's still actually very well put together too. You can kind of tell it does show a little bit of its age when it comes to a little bit of the graphic design stuff. This is definitely like super early 2000s like graphic design style. Just by, you know, doing my research and looking up how cards used to look. Very kind of old school, but I mean, it still kind of fits the old school Star Wars aesthetic, if that makes sense. Definitely it feels like, you know, the original trilogy type of style of what everything's supposed to look like. And it's super cool too, because guess what? You get tired of a map, you can play on a different one. And there's a whole other map that I have that's actually based off of stuff from Episode 2 that exists. This map's probably the best one. It's got the most space that you can, you know, put things out on. It's pretty cool. So, because literally, like, almost the entire board, you know, is, like, movable around. So it's a pretty big space to kind of go move around and such. But, yeah, I really dig this game. If you aren't able to find a copy, it's going to be very difficult, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. And I'll admit, probably nowadays, there's probably some other games you can get to get your Star Wars miniatures dueling fix out. I have not played Imperial Assault, but I know that's a good one if you like the original traditional trilogy stuff. Star Wars Destiny also does a great job, but this is definitely an excellent system. I am still glad I still own this game. It's still fun to pop out once in a while with the family. It's a really good game. If you can find a copy of it, it is definitely worth keeping in your collection. It's still fun. It's Star Wars. If you don't like Star Wars, you're not going to probably want to get this game, but I love it. And it's also great production value, too. The cards are actually not super cheap. Compared to some games I've played recently, the card stock on this is actually not that bad. And I've played all these decks multitudes of different times. So yeah, production value is still great on this, too. The dies are chunky. You had to put stickers on them, but the stickers, you know, for all these years later, they are not worn out that much at all. So that's pretty nice. But yeah, Star Wars Epic Duels. It's a great game. If you can get it, buy it. It's worth it. Trust me. Especially if you're a Star Wars fan. Go do it.
Star Wars Epic Duels is a game that, you know, brings back a lot of memories. You know, like I talked about, this was a game that my dad and I and my brother would play on Thursday nights when my mom went tap dancing, because that would be the night that my dad would be home from work, that we would be able to get to just hang out and just play games and just not care how late I stayed up and just played like 2 or 3 rounds of Star Wars Epic Duels. It's definitely a really fun game, especially because at that point it was when I was getting really into Star Wars and really trying to learn all these characters and kind of where they came from and their backstories. And it was to the point that literally I wanted more content, so I printed out customs on my parents' old inkjet printer or whatever the hell it was, and just got to see all this cool stuff. It was really cool. And playing Unmatched, which we'll talk about on the show. Definitely Unmatched overall as a gameplay experience is a better system put together. However, I will say that playing this recently and also just looking at the Star Wars stuff again and also playing a lot of Star Wars Destiny, it does just show the magic of Star Wars in the tabletop sense of just being these characters and, being able to duel it out and have these kind of cool all-star battles of what if Darth Maul versus Luke Skywalker or, Darth Vader went up against Boba Fett, and it's just super cool things that you get to do that you don't get to normally just say, hey, this is an experience that happened, and I got to basically tell the tale. Star Wars Epic Duels was the first time, as Star Wars fans, you really got to actually do that. And these are some memories that I'm never going to forget. I remember even playing this on Christmas Day. Got to bust it open. I remember I got Lego Star Wars 2, and this game in 2006 Christmas. It was a very special day. Very, very big Star Wars Christmas for me. That was for sure. But yeah, this was a really special game. So, I hope you folks on this Christmas day, if you're watching this on Christmas, or if you're watching this after Christmas, I hope that you got to play some cool tabletop games. You maybe got a new tabletop game that you're playing, or you just get to play some cool games with your family that you just know and love. I know I'm going to be busting out on Match with my dad. Because I'm going to be like, hey, this is basically Star Wars Epic Duels, just a little smoother. But yeah, so I hope you folks get to do that on Christmas. I wish you all a happy holiday. I really appreciate all the love and support that you folks have given me basically all through 2020 with this new show that I've done. I've got to cover some new games and play some new games that I don't normally get to do. And we're going to continue doing that in 2021. So I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday. And as always, everybody, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, and as always, stay delightfully wicked. Until the next time, when I bring a new game to your table, have a happy holiday, and go play some games.